Today we're going to talk about the Crow Creek Massacre, which occurred around the mid-14th century in the central part of what is now South Dakota. This village, also a part of the initial coalescent culture, had been a thriving community surrounded by a defensive ditch and palisade. But however, the scene unearthed told a story of unimaginable horror. With the skeletal remains of nearly 500 individuals, men, women and children lay in a mass grave, their bodies showing signs of violent deaths. The villagers had faced a brutal and systematic attack. Evidence of scalping, decapitation, and other traumatic injuries indicated that the massacre had most likely been a coordinated effort. The mass grave was partially covered with layers of soil and refuse, suggesting a hasty burial. Of course, which also implies that the survivors, if there were any, had little time to mourn or properly bury their dead, possibly fearing a return of the attackers or needing to escape imminent danger themselves. The motivation behind this massacre remains speculative, yet several theories have emerged over the years. Some scholars point to resource competition as a potential cause. The early 14th century was a period of climatic changes that might have led to resource shortages, sparking violent conflicts over arable land, hunting territories, and other essential resources. Many of the skulls showed evidence of scalping, where the skin and hair were forcibly removed from the head. This practice was not only a form of physical violence, but also held cultural and symbolic significance, possibly related to warfare, revenge, or ritualistic acts. Decapitation marks were also prevalent, indicating that some victims had their heads severed. This extreme form of violence further underscores the brutality of the attackers and the intensity of the conflict. Additionally, the remains showed signs of other injuries inflicted by sharp weapons, such as arrows, knives, and clubs, pointing to a well-coordinated assault involving multiple forms of weaponry. Many victims appeared to have been killed in a systematic manner, with similar types of injuries recurring throughout the remains. This pattern indicates that the attackers had a clear intent and method in their violence, possibly aiming to annihilate the entire community. Moreover, the age and gender distribution of the remains provide further context. The mass grave included men, women, and children, showing that the attackers did not spare any segment of the population. The presence of young and elderly victims highlighted the indiscriminate nature of the violence and suggests that the entire village was targeted without regard to age or ability to defend themselves. Although researchers believed they were most likely buried quickly to prevent disease or to complete some form of ritualistic closure, or rather to escape further threats from the attackers. This haste in burial also reflects the chaos and fear that would have gripped the village in the aftermath of the massacre. Indeed, the Crow Creek Massacre has spurred several hypotheses attempting to explain the causes and motivations behind this tragic event. These hypotheses are derived from archaeological evidence, environmental data, and historical context, each offering a different perspective on what might have led to such a brutal conflict. One prominent hypothesis revolves around resource competition. The massacre occurred during a period of significant climatic changes known as the medieval warm period, which lasted from around 950 to 1250 AD. This period was characterized by shifts in temperature and precipitation patterns, which could have led to resource shortages. As arable land became scarcer and hunting territories diminished, communities might have found themselves in direct competition for vital resources such as food, water, and fertile land. This competition could have escalated into violent conflicts as groups struggled to secure their survival. Another hypothesis focuses on political and social tensions. The village at Crow Creek, which was part of the initial coalescent culture, a period marked by the consolidation of smaller, scattered communities into larger, more complex societies. As these societies grew, so did their political structures and social hierarchies. This growth could have led to increased internal and external rivalries. Power struggles, territorial disputes, and competition for leadership roles might have intensified, leading to violent confrontations. The massacre at Crow Creek could have been the result of such a power struggle, with one group attempting to dominate or eliminate a rival community. A third hypothesis suggests that the massacre had cultural and ritualistic components. Some scholars propose that the violence was not solely about resources or power, but also involved spiritual or ritualistic elements. In many Native American cultures, warfare and violence were sometimes tied to religious beliefs and rituals. The massacre could have been part of a broader conflict that included ritualistic acts intended to assert dominance, exact revenge, or fulfill spiritual obligations. The systematic nature of the killings and the signs of scalping and decapitation might support this idea, indicating that the violence had symbolic as well as practical purposes. Environmental stress is another factor considered in explaining the massacre. Besides, in the climatic changes of the medieval warm period, the region could have experienced other environmental challenges such as droughts, floods, or diseases affecting crops and livestock. These environmental stresses would have exacerbated existing tensions and made survival even more precarious. Communities under such stress might have become more aggressive in their efforts to secure resources, leading to violent clashes. Finally, some researchers look at the massacre within the context of broader regional dynamics. The Great Plains were home to numerous Native American groups, each with its own culture, traditions, and alliances. The massacre might have been part of a larger pattern of regional conflict and migration. Groups displaced by environmental changes or other conflicts could have encroached on Crow Creek territory, leading to clashes. Alternatively, the massacre could have been a preemptive strike by a neighbouring group seeking to assert control over a strategic location. The skeletal remains provided invaluable insights into the massacre, but the process of studying them also raised ethical considerations. For many Native American communities, the remains of their ancestors hold deep spiritual significance, and proper burial is essential to ensure peace in the afterlife. Recognizing these cultural values, efforts were made to work closely with the contemporary Native American tribes that are descendants of the people who lived in the Crow Creek area. The reburial process was an act of respect, cultural sensitivity, and collaboration. Tribal elders and leaders played a crucial role in overseeing the reburial, ensuring that the remains were treated according to traditional customs and practices. The reburial ceremony involved traditional rituals and prayers, reflecting the spiritual beliefs and customs of the tribes. These ceremonies were designed to honor the deceased and provide them with a respectful and peaceful final resting place. The process also served as a moment of healing and reconciliation, acknowledging the suffering of the past while fostering a sense of continuity and respect for cultural heritage. We might add, the reburial site was carefully selected to ensure that it would remain protected and respected. Measures were taken to prevent future disturbances and to honor the memories of the victims. This effort reflects a broader movement within archaeology and anthropology to work in partnership with Indigenous communities, respecting their rights and perspectives in the study and treatment of ancestral remains. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel to get notified on more of our contents. Until next time.